afternoon, good evening from wherever you are joining us today. It is early morning for both Rennie and I, so we are grateful that you are joining us today. This is the summer series that's hosted and operated by the Enrollment Services at the University of Calgary. We're going to be doing a brief introduction to some university 101s when it relates to international student finances. Before we get into our presentation today, we are going to do a territorial acknowledgement. In Canada, we pay tribute to the original caretakers of this land. As settlers on this land, known as Turtle Island, it's really important that we are recognizing our nation's First Peoples. The University of Calgary is located in the heart of southern Alberta. It both acknowledges and pays tribute to the traditional territories of the peoples of Treaty 7, which include the Blackfoot Confederacy comprised of the Siksika, the Piikani, and the Kainai First Nations, the Tsuut'ina First Nation, and the Stoney Nakoda, including Chiniki, Bearspaw, and Goodstoney First Nations. The city of Calgary is also home to Métis Nation within Alberta, including Nose Hill Métis District 5 and Elbow Métis District 6. Great, a brief introduction of your speakers. There's myself, Diana Jamal Samborski. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant and international student specialist with International Student Services. And that's just a really big fancy way of saying that I am authorized in law as a regulated Canadian immigration consultant to advise you as international students on immigration matters in Canada. To receive or advise or represent an individual on immigration matters or matters relating to Canadian immigration and citizenship, you have to be authorized in law to do so. So take comfort in knowing that within our office, all of the immigration advisors are regulated and are in good standing with our college. With that, I'm going to pass it off to Rennie, and she's going to introduce herself.
Yeah, thank you so much, Diana. My name is Rennie. I'm an international student fees advisor with Enrollment Services in the Office of the Registrar. And one thing I always like to do is to kind of give an overview of what Enrollment Services actually is. So Enrollment Services, we actually help current students at the university. So those who are already our students, they've paid their deposit and all. And we're able to help them with course registration. So to understand registration deadlines, how to register for classes, some troubleshooting issues if students have those with their course registration. We also help with fees and financials. So understanding your student account with like your payment, your breakdown of your tuition, general fees, third-party sponsorships if you're sponsored by external agency, and payment plans. We also help with student records. So most of the time for some changes that students need to make to their account, they need to submit like these service requests. And if you don't know which service request to submit, Enrollment Services can definitely advise with that. Transcript requests, third-party authorization if you have other members of your family that you'd like to authorize to have information, like some of your records, personal information, and even residency status updates. We help with that. And on the student financial support side, we also are able to give information regarding awards, scholarship, bursaries, financial aid. And with some of our international students from the US, we're able to help them with their US loan applications. And of course, you can contact us by whether appointments, you can give us a call, and you can just drop into the office and see any of our wonderful advisors face to face.
Wonderful. Thank you, Rennie. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and we're going to pass it off to you, Rennie, for the first portion of our presentation.
All right, thanks. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly get into the objectives of my presentation this morning and some of the things we'll really be talking about. So by the end of my presentation, you should be able to understand like payment with the different Calgary payment methods, the impact of late fee payments. I hope everyone can see my slides. Yeah. And you should be able to understand the term account summary that you see on your student center, exactly what it breaks down, what it shows you, how to print your confirmation of registration letter, and also how to get your payment receipts if you ever need those. Also, how to update your residency status. You'll be able to learn that, and how to submit third-party sponsorship applications through your service request. So all those things are mostly financial related. They relate to your tuition fees, they relate to your general fees, and I hope that by the end of this presentation, this webinar today, you actually have more information on how to get these things done. So getting into it, the first thing I will talk about is how to pay your fees. And this is how to pay your fees using Flywire. So Flywire is the University of Calgary's preferred payment method for both domestic and international students. It's possible that when you paid your deposit, or maybe for some of you that have even paid your fees, you used Flywire to make this payment. Very good. But one thing we like to let students know is that Flywire is the only payment method the university has that is accessible from the student center. It is integrated into your student center. So some of the advantages Flywire offers, you're able to pay in your own currency. So if you're paying from your home country, there are flexible options to pay from over 240 countries with over 140 currencies. Another thing Flywire has that is very useful to a lot of students is the fact that you can share payment links. So if you're not paying your fees by yourself, but you have your parents paying your fees, you have maybe relatives, other relatives paying your fees, you are able to send a secure payment link to a third party through Flywire. You can track your payments in real time. It has faster processing time, and Flywire offers around-the-clock multilingual support, either by email, by phone, or by live chat. And what you can see on this slide, you can see this table that shows the different Flywire payment methods, the convenience of the service fees that you could get charged, and the processing times. So with Flywire, you can pay your fees with like credit card, you can pay with a debit card. If you have a Canadian bank account, there's something we call like an Interac e-transfer that you can do from that. Online bill payment. You can also do a bank transfer with Flywire. All these different options are available and they're accessible with very good processing time. About you have the lowest one here with the e-transfer takes about a business day for it to get processed and get to your student account. For those that haven't used Flywire before, I'm just going to briefly go over exactly how you can make this payment from your student center. And of course, the first thing you want to do is to log into your student center. You go to the My Financials tab, and one of the first things you see there is a Pay My Fees link. When you click on that Pay My Fees link, the first page that shows up is an acknowledgement page from Flywire. You read through all the instructions. It talks about how your payment needs to be from a legal source. It talks about how the refunds will be processed through Flywire, and you acknowledge this. So you check the proceed to make a payment acknowledgement mark, and then you select the pay application or academic fees if you're paying your tuition fees. If you're paying residence, it's different. There's a different tab to pay residence fees. And the next page you see when you select the pay academic or application fees, it takes you to this second page. And in here, you're able to see your due fees. So if it's your fall fees, you're able to see this like on this page. You're able to put in the exact amount of fees you want to pay. If you're not paying everything, if you're just paying part of it, you will update total and then make the payments. That's if you're making this payment by yourself. However, if you have someone else making the payment on your behalf, then you can use the shareable payment link. And in this case, all you need is, first of all, you need to let the person know that they're paying your fees. And the second thing you need is to get the person's email address. You put in their email address, you create a link, and then you email the link. So on the other hand, this person gets they get the payment request from you, and they're able to make the payment on your behalf. So with Flywire, you can only make payments if there's a current outstanding balance on your account. You cannot just make payments through Flywire if you don't have any outstanding balance on your account. So you cannot overpay and that's what that means. You can pay more than you actually owe. So the next thing is once you're done and you click on the make payment, if you're doing this on your own, or on the other hand, if the third party is actually your parent is making the payment for you, one thing they will see is the ability to select the payment method. Of course, they're going to select the country that the payment is coming from first, and then they can select whether they're paying with a credit card, a debit card, or they are actually going to pay with a bank transfer. And with this, they're able to see the service fee and also just able to see the total amount of money that they're paying towards your tuition. One other thing you have with Flywire is the ability to access a payment history. So this payment history, same from your student center. If you click on the pay my fees, one of the options that you have right there, I'm just going to quickly go back, it's the payment history. Clicking on the payment history actually shows you all the payments that you've made using Flywire from your student account. And it shows the different payment statuses. So are they in the initiated stage? Are they getting processed? Is the payment guaranteed? Is the payment already delivered to your account? All those different stages have their meanings outlined in the payment history page. And you also see the payment method that was used to make all those different payments and when it's posted. So posted means when this money is actually going to get posted to your student account. That's when it's gone through the processing time. And it's very important to put processing time in mind when you're making payments, because if you have a processing time of 5 days, it's not the same day that you make a payment that payment will reflect on your account. And if the payment is not reflected on your account, then that payment will not go towards your tuition fees. So putting payment processing time in mind is very important to avoid delays in your processing. So the next time we have other payment methods. If for one reason or the other, you're not comfortable with using Flywire or you're not able to use Flywire well, although if you're not able to use Flywire well, I would advise you can contact Enrollment Services and you have an advisor that will walk you through the steps. But if for any other reason you're not able to use Flywire, we have other payment methods. So the first one, we have online Canadian bank transfer, but this is only possible if you have a Canadian bank account. The typical processing time for this is 3 to 5 business days. Then we have Convera Global Pay. Convera Global Pay is very useful for international students. Again, if you're not able to use Flywire, you're able to do electronic funds transfer, wire transfer, direct debit, but this can take up to 2 weeks to process. With a credit card using Convera Global Pay, you're able to make your payment within 3 to 5 business days. With CIBC Student Pay, Bankwire is the only option, and that can take up to 2 weeks to process. So there are links on this page on how to pay your fees using Convera, pay your fees using CIBC Student Pay. And of course, you can always scan the QR code and you see the different payment methods. By the way, my presentation has a couple of QR codes, so you can definitely follow along as I'm going and just scanning all those codes to see the pages that they link to. So next we have the Student Center. And the Student Center, so apart from just offering information about your financials, there are a couple of other things that you can do on the Student Center. So it has information on service requests. I mentioned service requests earlier, and this is one of the way University of Calgary receives requests from you if you want to make changes, let's say about your student records, about your financials. In some cases, you apply for an award and they ask for additional supporting documents. Submitting the supporting document usually requires you submitting a service request. It could be with financial support. In some cases, you apply for a bursary, they require supporting documents. Again, most of the time, it can be through service requests for registration, for graduation. You want to change your name on your parchment during the graduation time. Service requests can take care of that. Then you have the personal information. So personal information would contain your address, your phone number. If you want to make changes to this, you can do it through your personal info. It will also contain your citizenship, residency, visa info. You will not be able to make changes, but you'll be able to see, oh, you're a citizen of this country, and also you're on a student visa, just to make sure your information is correct. And the SIN update. So the SIN is a social insurance number, and you're able to update this. Usually at first you will get like a to-do list item that says update your SIN. You follow the instructions from that to-do list item, and you're able to update your SIN through personal info. Then you have the exams and grades. And as the name states, mostly it's about your enrolled courses, it's about your exam information, the venue, and so on. And it's also about your grades when your exams have been graded. Another thing you can do from your exams and grades tab is to request what we call a confirmation of registration letter. I will go into that a little bit further later. And also you have the program and advising info. That page also, most of the time, is used by faculty for advising. It contains like a GPA calculator. It has information on your academic requirements, change of program, and graduation application. Another thing you can get from the program and advising info is you can also request student confirmation letters, like the confirmation of registration letter. And then we have the My Financials tab. Um, Before we get into that though, just quickly about the service request. One of the things that is fees related you can get from your service request is to update your residency status. So your residency status determines if you're assessed international or domestic tuition rate at the University of Calgary. And it's possible that during your stay at the University of Calgary, you become a permanent resident, you become a Canadian citizen, you become like a conventional refugee, or for some reason, you're dependent of a diplomat to Canada. And if your status changes in this way, you're actually able to notify the university so that your status can be updated and your tuition can also be updated. And the way you do that is through the service request that you submit. On that page, you submit the service request to Enrollment Services. You're able to select My Student Record and then submit residency status change. So you do that, but you also need to attach like proof, so acceptable supporting documents. These documents include a Canadian passport, makes like the biodata page, a PR card, front and back sides of the PR card, a confirmation of permanent residence. This can also be used to support your PR claim, front and back sides of that. Then you have the Canadian citizenship certificate, and this can also support your citizenship update. And then for the conventional refugees, they can submit like a notice of decision. There are other supporting documents that can be submitted. You can scan the QR code. It gives like a more exhaustive list of supporting documents. One thing to note with updating your residency status is that the residency documents, they need to be received before the end of the term to adjust your tuition rate for the term. So what this means is the end of the term for fall 2026 is December 24th. If you want to update your residency status, you need to submit your supporting documents through a service request before December 24th to update your residency status for fall. If you submit on December 25th, for example, your residency status will not be updated for fall and your tuition will not be updated for fall. They will only be updated for the winter term. Again, there's a QR code that you can scan on that page. One thing I want to say before we continue is if you have questions as I go along, that's fine. You can put your questions in the Q&A tab of the Zoom, and then by the end of the presentation, I'll be able to get through all your questions and provide answers. So next page, we have the requesting your confirmation of registration letter. So this is another thing you can access from your Student Center page, either exams and grades or program and advising info. The confirmation of registration letters are available to registered students. As the name suggests, you need to be registered in courses or enrolled in courses to actually have access to the confirmation of registration letter. They prove you're currently enrolled at the University of Calgary and they are an official document. So these are official letters that are able to confirm your registration, your program of study, your academic standing, your course load. So they can even come with like a fees assessment. They can come without a fees assessment. And the common uses we have for this confirmation of registration letter could be for banking, maybe opening like a student account and you just need to confirm to the bank that you're actually a student, credit card applications, student loans. In some cases, you want to get loans from like an institution in Canada, and as a student, you just need to prove that you are currently enrolled at the university. You can submit a confirmation of registration letter. For third-party sponsorship approvals, in some cases, they can request this and it's an official letter you can submit. Also, I believe for study permit renewals, a confirmation of registration letter can be quite useful. And the University of Calgary uses a secure sharing site known as MyCreds to issue these official letters. And on here, we have like a QR code that shows you exactly a step-by-step, it's a step-by-step guide of how to request your confirmation of registration letter from your student center. And next I just have some examples of the call letter. So the first one we have is one without a fees assessment. Let's say you only want to prove maybe your enrollment status at the university, you can definitely request a call letter without a fees assessment. It doesn't show all the individual fees for each tuition, for each course. It also doesn't show like the fees for your general fees. But then you have the call letter with the fees assessment, and this shows amount for your tuition, for your general fees. It shows all the different charges. So depending on what you're trying to apply for, what they request, you can get like a call letter with fees or one without fees. So next we have the My Financials tab. And on the Student Center, if you select the My Financials tab, it takes you to this all new page that outlines essentially all your financial information at the university. So your charges, any payments you've made, it talks about your charges that are due now, your charges that will be due in the future, your academic charges will be listed. If you're on residence, it will also list your residence charges. It's also on this page that you can pay your fees. So if you want to pay your fees through Flywire, because it's integrated, you can click on this link. It takes you to all the Pay My Fees pages for Flywire. You can also access your term account summary from the My Financials page. So for each term, you can look at the summary of your accounts. You can enroll in what we call a payment plan. I'll talk more about this. You can see all your payments that you've made so far. You can also print your receipts from the My Financials tab. If you were a sponsored student, there will be a different red lettered link here that says sponsorship. If you received any kind of award or scholarship from the university and you're able to scroll down on the page, you also see the award and you see the amount of money you're getting from the award. So the My Financials tab definitely contains a lot of information, a lot of financial fees related information for students to go through. And one of the things I want to talk about would be how to get your term account summary. So the term account summary, this provides a detailed summary of all your financial transactions on your account for a specified term. If you're just looking at account activity on your Student Center My Financials page, what you see there can be combined information of for different terms. But if you specifically want to drill down to a specific term, using a term account summary is one of the best ways to do this. Enrollment Services advisors use this, and also as a student, you have access to this from your Student Center. One thing about the term account summary is that it is not an official document intended to replace, to be used as a call letter for a term. It's an unofficial one. If you require an official document that shows all your fees, you can use a call letter. That's a confirmation of registration letter. But if you just want to show something to maybe a family member, something unofficial that you need, you can use a term account summary. So the information you find on a term account summary would be your academic charges. And this would show your general fees, your tuition fees, it would add all of that. And you also have your tuition cost-free fee breakdown. So in this example, you see this particular student is registered in like 5 different classes, and you're able to see how much each class actually costs. And you see the fee groups because all the different courses you take from different faculties, they belong to different fee groups, and those fee groups have their own rates. So a fee group A, you see it's the same amount for everything. And then if you are enrolled in a payment plan, you will also be able to see payment plan charges on your term account summary. Residence charges would show up if you are in residence. And another thing you see here is academic payments. So for this particular example, you have someone that's made payments with Flywire for their deposit, also use Flywire to make their academic payments, and you see exactly how much the different payments are. You can get this from your term account summary. There's a link here that also gives a step-by-step guide on how to request or access your term account summary. And the next thing you can get from your Student Center is how to print official payment receipts. So if you need a payment receipt for any reason, this is a payment receipt the University of Calgary offers. You can get this on the My Financials page by clicking receipts. What you see first is a payment history. You're able to view all the receipts. So if you wanted a receipt for a particular amount, you click on the view, and then you're able to open and download the PDF copy of the payment receipt. It's important to note that your official receipts are not itemized. So an example is looking at this with the 9,000, you just get a payment receipt that says 9,000, it shows the method of payment. It doesn't really itemize what the 9,000 went towards, whether it went towards your tuition fees or your general fees. That is information is not present on the receipt. It just shows a lump sum and the method of payment. You may need to disable your pop-up blocker when you're trying to access your receipt because it usually opens in a new tab. And of course, there's a link to a step-by-step guide on how to access the payment receipt from your My Financials tab. So going into some of the financial options or supports that the university offers, the first and the most important one I would say is a payment plan. And that's because payment plans allow students to pay their academic fees, so their tuition and general fees in installments over the course of the term. And each installment would have a separate payment deadline. One thing about payment plans is that their due date and also the number of installments you get cannot be customized. customized. For instance, if you wanted to enroll in a payment plan for fall 2026, you would get 3 installments as an undergraduate student. And also as like a course-based graduate student, it would only be 3 installments that you get. You cannot customize that to be 5 installments, 6 installments, you can't. For thesis-based and PhD students, they would have 4 installments. And all these installments would have different payment deadlines. So for the fall 2026, for example, with the 3 installments, the first installment will be due at the end of September. The second installment will be due at the end of October, and the third installment will be due at the end of November. And this is where the advantages of enrolling in a payment plan lies, because it sort of extends your payment deadline in a way with having all these different installments. All student groups can enroll in a payment plan 30 days before the start of the term. So if you're interested in enrolling in a payment plan for fall 2026, that is perfectly fine, but enrollment begins August 1st. That's 30 days before the start of the term in September. Residence fees cannot be included in a payment plan. This payment plan is solely available for academic fees, and students can enroll in a payment plan 1 term at a time. So if you want to be enrolled in a payment plan for fall 2026 and winter 2027, you need to do it 1 term at a time. You can enroll in a payment plan as like combined. Um, there's an administrative fee that is charged for payment plans, and that is $40 for fall 2026 and $40 for winter 2027. All students are assessed this except for the thesis-based grad students and the doctoral students. And the administrative fee once you enroll in a payment plan is non-refundable. Then briefly, the other sort of financial support we have at the university, not really financial support per se, but sort of like a financial option for students would be awards and scholarships. That's because UCalgary offers a lot of money in scholarships and awards to both international and domestic students. It's possible some of you listening to this right now already applied for the entrance awards. Maybe you applied for the Prestige Awards. These are some awards that are offered by the university to new incoming students. Once you become a continuing student at the university, you're in your second year, your third year, your fourth year, you will have access to what we call continuing awards. And of course, all these awards have their different eligibility criteria. For continuing awards, it could be dependent on the number of units that you've completed at the university, your GPA, and again, entrance awards, continuing awards, they have different eligibility criteria. You can apply for awards from your Student Center My Financials page. There will be a tab there that says apply for undergraduate awards. And when you do this, you will see like a list of awards that you could possibly get if you send in your application. And in addition to the UCalgary Awards, there are also some external organizations that offer awards and loans to international students, like the Global Affairs Canada, Universities Canada, and Scholarships Canada. All these different sites, they have their different requirements that students need to meet to be able to get awards from them. It's all these linked. You can actually check on the links from the presentation and you'll be able to see the different requirements for this. Important to note that most high school entrance and undergraduate continuing awards, they don't cover all tuition fees or living costs. And that's why I said at the beginning that this is just a financial option for students. It's recommended that all international students are able to secure other forms of funding before committing to studying at UCalgary, because relying solely on awards and scholarships to pay tuition is not something that is feasible, because these awards will not be able to cover all those costs. And next, we have the third-party sponsorships. So you could have students that are being sponsored by companies. If you're being sponsored by your government, for example, the government of your country is sponsoring you to attend the University of Calgary for your education, what you need to do is to submit a third-party sponsorship. So this is different from when individuals, parents, friends, relatives are paying your fees. These group of people are not eligible third-party sponsors. If you want to apply for a third-party sponsorship, there are three main steps, and one of them involves submitting a service request. So the first step is you need to obtain a sponsorship letter from the company or the government agency that is actually sponsoring your education. It should be on their company letterhead. It should say the term they're sponsoring you for. It could say how much they're sponsoring you for or what exactly they're sponsoring you for your tuition fees. It needs to be a detailed sponsorship letter. Then when you get that sponsorship letter, you upload that letter through a service request in your student center. So this is a service request that is to your financials and it's just like a submitted third-party sponsorship. And this, it's very important that this is done by the fee payment deadline. Then you have the University of Calgary Finance will send an invoice to your sponsor, and also you can monitor the status of your payment through a sponsorship link in your student center, My Financials. The QR code on there actually takes you to the third-party sponsorship application page on the University of Calgary website, where you have detailed information on how to submit a sponsorship and how even your sponsor should prepare the sponsorship letter. And third-party sponsorship applications that are submitted after the fee payment deadline will be subjected to delayed processing. And any late interest that is assessed from this will be the student's responsibility. So it's very important once you get that sponsorship letter to submit a service request as soon as possible so that your sponsorship can be processed on time. And of course, because a lot of things depends, especially with like your tuition, your fee payment, sponsorship, and so on, depends on these fee deadlines. Each academic term has its own fee payment deadline. So it's quite important that you know what these different fee payment deadlines are, because you can use this to plan your payment ahead of time, because payment processing can take several days. It is very, very important. I cannot stress this enough that it's very important that you take payment processing time into account when you're making payments to avoid delays. You don't want to be making a payment on the payment deadline, because when you're doing that, then you're exposing yourself to some of the impact of late fee payment. For 2026, the payment deadline is September 18, 2026. For winter 2027, the payment deadline for that term is January 29, 2027. And there is a QR code on there that actually takes you to the academic schedule overview for important dates and deadlines, not only fees, but also registration deadlines. And getting to my final slide, I will just talk about the impact of late fee payments. So at the University of Calgary, there are two major impacts of paying your fees late. The first one you have is interest, and the second one you have is what we call notices or holds. So U Calgary charges interest on past due accounts. Late interest is assessed on any past due balances of over $100 at 1% per month. So if after the term fee deadline of September 18 for the fall 2026 term, you still haven't you haven't fully paid your fall fees, any past due or outstanding charge can be subject to late interest at a rate of 1% per month. Then the other thing we have is the notice or the hold. So these holds, they can limit access to some university services. And one important access they limit your that you are limited to get is registration. If you have a hold on your account, you may not be able to register for future classes. You may not be able to request your transcript when it gets to graduation time. If you have fees owing on your account, you will not get your degree parchment. And also student letter requests, such as requesting a program completion letter, can be impacted by having a hold on your account. You will still be able to get a confirmation of registration letter, even if you have a hold on your account. But all the other student letters, you will not be able to get. So there are three main stages to having a hold on your account. The first one is if you have overdue charges 1 to 14 days after the term fee deadline. You have a notice on your account, and that notice is just there to serve as a reminder. It serves as a reminder that hey, you have past due fees, please pay your fees. It doesn't impact you, Calgary services. Then you have the overdue charges of 15 to 120 days after your term fee deadline. And this prevents access to services like adding classes, getting your transcript, and so on. And then you have a hold after 121 plus days. At this stage, you run the risk of being sent to a collections agency. The collections agency, their job is to get the debt hold, and they can impact your credit score. Um, One thing that you can notice, Calgary will not remove you from classes you're currently registered or enrolled in when your accounts are past due. So even if you have outstanding charges on your account, whatever classes you're currently enrolled or registered in, you will not be removed from those classes. Okay, so thank you very much for listening. One thing we have there is a QR code to a short evaluation, just for us to know how well you are enjoying this particular presentation. You can register for future orientation webinars. And of course, for more information, you can click the link to contact Enrollment Services at the Office of the Registrar, and we'll be very happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you. And I'll pass this off to Diana.
Thank you, Rennie. Okay, so I will share my screen. All right. Again, for those folks who joined us late, my name is Diana Jamal Samborski, and I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant with International Student Services. As a quick introduction to our team, we are a small but mighty team. There's our manager, Lynn Tran, myself, and my colleague, Marisa Nerona. The three of us are international immigration advisors, so we are all regulated. Myself and my manager hold the designation of Regulated Canadian Immigration Consultant, so that's the designation of RCIC. And then our colleague Marisa Nerona, she holds the designation of a regulated international student immigration advisor. There is a distinction between what an RCIC and a RISIA can advise on, but we're both regulated and authorized to advise you on immigration matters. We have Justin Orthner. He's our international student support advisor. He's here to help you with settlement matters, housing, events, and programming. And then we have four wonderful co-op students, Juan, Nevaeh, Mahek, and Nina. And they are here to support you in your journey at the University of Calgary. They are often the faces of the International Student Service, and the very first faces you'll see once you come into our office. We are located on the MacEwan Student Center, MSC 275, which is conveniently located in the Mac Hall food court. We're right next to campus security and across from the information booth. Our office hours are Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to noon, and we are closed over the noon hour for lunch. And then from there, we reopen from 1 to 4. Just note that when emailing or connecting with our office, we do have a 3-day business response time, and our office does not offer drop-in advising. So once you have started your program in the fall term, you'll be able to book a one-on-one appointment either with an immigration or settlement advisor. Keeping in mind that prior to the start of the term, you are restricted to email advising or attending these types of sessions to ask your questions. Just a quick promotion for our pre-arrival program. Students should have access, should be starting to have access to this program, but all students should have access no later than July 6th. In order to access the pre-arrival program, every student must one, generate their UCalgary email address and then actually log into the D2L. So the D2L stands for Desire to Learn, and this is the platform that you're going to be using throughout your entire university career at the University of Calgary, whether you're an exchange student, visiting student researcher, or a degree program student. Familiarizing yourself with the D2L is going to be beneficial to you prior to your arrival, so that you know how to navigate it when it comes to your courses at the University of Calgary. There is a wealth of information on the pre-arrival program, and we really want you to access it. Follow us on Instagram. We have a lot of important information there. We provide you with immigration updates, reminders, prevent promotions, and just fun tips. So please connect with us via social media. All right, some quick settlement 101s. We're going to talk quickly about opening up a bank account. If you're an exchange student or a short-term student at the University of Calgary, you're not required to open up a Canadian bank account. That's really your choice as to whether or not you choose to do it. But for our long-term degree-seeking students, it is in your best interest to obtain a Canadian bank account, particularly if you're coming from a country that may have currency devaluation or fluctuations, or there may be limitations on export of currencies or funds being able to be sent abroad. It's going to be in your best interest to open up a Canadian bank account. Often you're going to need this for paying your living costs, getting monies like the refund that Rennie was talking about, and also facilitating payments such as scholarship and awards from the University of Calgary. It's much easier to pay you to a Canadian bank account and often University of Calgary will not provide funds to an international bank account when it comes to scholarships and awards. When it comes to opening up a Canadian bank account, you have a variety of financial institutions. You can check out our International Student Services website for more information on banking in Canada. Some bank accounts will have fees, and some will waive the fees for students. Generally, most banks will offer student designated bank accounts, and they generally have no or low fees. But it's important that you're understanding what you're signing up for and what is included in the services attached or associated with that bank account. When it comes to the Canadian bank account, you should choose a bank account based on services that they provide and what's important to you. You can ask yourself or ask the financial institution, is there a fee to open an account? Are there monthly service charges? Does the bank provide online banking services? Sometimes to send e-transfers, there's a cost, for example. Are there transactions charges or interest rates? Where is the physical bank located and is it convenient to you? So these are things that you should be asking yourself and perhaps your financial institution when you're looking at opening a bank account. How to open a bank account, you're going to need a passport or birth certificate. You're going to need some kind of second piece of ID, so typically your study permit. And if you obtain an Alberta driver's license or an Alberta ID card, you can also bring that in. But no matter what, as an international student, you're going to have to show the bank. If you're going to go and open up a student bank account specifically, you're going to have to show your study permit. And then from there, any monies that you'd like to deposit, you can talk to the financial institution to see if there's any charges for the transfer and deposit into those accounts. And then from there, you also want to have your student ID as also additional proof that you are a student at the University of Calgary so you can benefit from those student rates. Encouraging you to check out our website and the Canadian government's website on how to open a bank account and some considerations that you should take into account. Now, there are often banking fees associated with banks in Canada, and that might be monthly management fees or fees for certain types of transactions. Often bank accounts will limit, or certain bank accounts will limit the number of transactions you can have in a month. Without incurring additional fees or charges. So connecting with your bank, really understanding the type of account you're opening and any fees associated with it is going to be important. Now, automated teller machines, ATMs, these are the machines that you're going to find conveniently located in businesses across Calgary and Canada. So you'll maybe find them in a convenience store like a 7-Eleven or a Circle K. You may find them at a club or a bar. You may be in a restaurant. And so what ends up happening is that there's often fees associated with accessing cash through an ATM. If you're using typically your branch or your financial institution's ATM, generally there may be no fees. Again, it's going to come back to your bank account that you've opened up. And so if you're trying to save on those fees, trying to find a ATM that is tied to your bank will be important. Now, if you're going to use an ATM, for example, at a club, maybe you're out having a good time and you need some cash, those are going to be charging quite high fees. Now, it's by law, they have to notify you the fees that they're going to charge you. So it'll pop up onto the ATM and you have to accept it in order for you to proceed. But just being mindful that the fees can be quite high. So if you're trying to budget and save money, being mindful of ATM fees is important. Scams and fraud. We really want you to take a look at the two links that are listed on this slide, both at the International Student Services website and the Center for Career and Personal Development with the University of Calgary. You're going to find a wealth of information on these websites regarding scams. It is very heartbreaking. Typically, at the start of the term, we will have international students who will be victims of fraud, and it's incredibly heartbreaking. Students can lose tens of thousands of dollars. And so we really want you to be aware of your circumstances. There's lots of videos and tips on our website, along with Center of Career and Personal Development, and we really want you to review them. Some of the best ways to understand whether something is a scam or a fraud is going to be if there's a lot of pressure for you to pay immediately. So if someone threatens your immigration status and says, you're going to be deported if you don't pay this amount of money. If they threaten that they're going to freeze your bank account right away if you don't pay a certain money. So there's typically a threat associated with it and an urgency associated with it. If this happens, don't panic, take a deep breath, stay calm, and then ask questions. And the more questions you ask, the more pressure they typically put on you. And then from there, you're going to know that it is a scam and it's not a legitimate call or legitimate email. You cannot No one is going to deport you or take away your study permit or your immigration status if you don't pay. And especially if they ask you to pay by gift cards, or if they say they're going to send someone to your door to pick up cash, automatically that is fraud. And you may be wanting to consider calling the Calgary Police Services so that they can help you navigate that situation. Try not to fall victim. There's a multitude of ways they can do it. It can be fake phone calls. It can also be emails, and it sometimes can take on the look of as if it's coming from the University of Calgary. When we're looking at Canadian financial culture, there's a couple things I did want to mention to you folks as international students. In Canada, cash is not always king. So in many cultures, cash is the number one way of payment. But in Canada, it is often not common. And in fact, there are going to be many businesses that do not support cash payments. Vice versa, there are some instances where it's only cash only, so you should ask beforehand if it's only cash only. But for the most part, cash isn't always supported. We are very much a plastic nation, so debit and credit is the most common. When you open up your bank account, you're going to be given a bank card. Often on the corner of your card, it's going to say debit/credit, and you're going to be able to use that card when you make payments. There's going to generally be a tap function where you can tap it and money will automatically come out of your bank account, depending on how you've set it up and what your maximum limit is for those taps. Credit cards are very common. If you're going to open up any Canadian credit cards, make sure you're able to, or any lines of credit, make sure you're able to pay back the debt you're taking out. That's going to be really important at a later stage. We don't want folks to have to claim bankruptcy and have negative impacts on their immigration status. Often Apple Pay and Google Pay is supported by most businesses. It's really common, very preferred. You can pay with an Apple Watch, for example, or a smartphone. Tipping etiquette. In Canada, tipping is very common. It's a way of expressing thanks and gratitude for the service that's been performed. So you're going to often find a strong tipping culture in Canada. This may be different from some cultures. So for example, in some Asian cultures, it's not common to tip, but here it very much is. And so you may find that when you're eating out at a restaurant, you may be prompted to pay a tip. And so here on the slide is some examples of some tip. In general, most folks tip between 20% and higher. Um, but I do want to say actually about tipping culture and etiquette, it is always optional. It is never mandatory. And you often will have a choice to skip tipping. So you don't necessarily have to feel the pressure to tip as well. So it's not obligatory. It is certainly optional, but it is very common and often perceived taboo to not tip on certain circumstances like eating at a formal sit-down restaurant. Sales tax, GST, HST, PST. Fortunately for you folks, you're coming to Calgary, Alberta. So in Alberta, we only have GST. We do not have HST, which is the harmonized sales tax, and we do not have provincial sales tax, which is PST. But the reason I've mentioned it on this slide is that we hope that not only are you going to explore Alberta, but you're going to have a chance to explore Canada. Canada is the second largest country by land mass. Russia is number one, Canada is number two. And so you're coming to one of the largest countries in the world, and there's so many provinces and territories that you can explore. And so we want you to know that if you venture out of Alberta, which is the province of your destination, there is going to be either PST or HST or both. So, and across Canada, you're going to have the GST. Now, fortunately for you folks in Alberta, we only have GST, so that's something that you can look at accounting for when you're budgeting. Well, the reason I'm mentioning it here today is that when you go to pay for something, typically in Canada, we have fixed pricing, so you're not able to necessarily negotiate on price. You'll often have fixed pricing, and that fixed pricing excludes the goods and services tax, the GST. So for example, if something costs $100 and the GST, which is 5%, is going to be added after or at the time you go to pay. So if the tag says it's $100, in reality, you're going to pay $105 when you go to the till. So really budgeting and being mindful that the pricing that you're seeing isn't always going to be the price that you're going to pay when you hit the till. When you're shopping, just keeping in mind that you're wanting to add on the additional 5%, for example, when you're going to the till. So making sure you're budgeting accordingly when you're going to the stores. Okay, so a brief overview of documents that we're going to need to bring to Canada. As for those of you who have applied for a study permit, you should have a study permit approval letter known as a port of entry, letter of introduction, a POV LOI. You must bring that with you. It says right in the letter that you must bring it with you and present it to an officer. So this is something that should be hand carried. If you're a student that needed a provincial attestation letter, such as an undergraduate student, we want you to bring it with you, even if it has expired. So bring that copy with you in case an officer wishes to see it. You will need a valid passport and a copy of your U Calgary admissions letter. If you've had to defer your studies, bring your deferral letter with you. Proof of enrollment, such as your confirmation of registration letter, which is what Rennie has talked at nauseum in her previous presentation. So she really went over it. So folks shouldn't have any questions about it at this stage. But we want you to make sure you're accessing your confirmation and registration if you can. Exchange students are able to access it as well. But in order to access the confirmation of registration letter, you have to have registered for courses. And if you're a thesis-based student, you have to have initialized your registration. Now, folks can also use a screenshot of your class schedule in the schedule builder, a screenshot of your list of courses in your student center, and a copy of your term summary account. But the confirmation of registration letter is king. If an officer wants the University of Calgary to verify a document, the University of Calgary will verify the confirmation of registration letter, but we may not verify the other types of documents that are listed on your screen. And this is because by law, the University of Calgary is required to verify the confirmation of registration letter. So if you're able to access that document, that is the document that is king and queen. And so we want you to have it. The documents that you see on this slide, you should be hand carrying. They should be in your carry-on luggage and not in your checked luggage. Financials. You must bring proof of financials with you. 9 out of 10 officers will ask to see proof of financials. This goes if you're an exchange student to a degree student. Visiting student researchers and exchange students, you're strongly encouraged to pay all of your fees in advance. You do not pay tuition fees to the University of Calgary. Rather, you pay your tuition fees to your home institution. But the fees that you do owe to the University of Calgary are your general fees. So either showing that fee payment receipt on arrival that you've paid your general fees or that you have the funds to support and pay those fees on arrival will be important. Most often, though, for exchange students and visiting student researchers, officers do want to see that the payment has been made. So if you're able to make that payment, please do and bring your receipt. Now, for our degree-seeking students, you have the choice to either have, if your fees have been already posted to your student account, you can pay your fees for the upcoming year in advance and then bring your fee payment receipt with you. Alternatively, you can show that you have your first year's tuition amount and that you're readily able to pay for it. If your program is 12 months in length, so it's a 12-month program, for example, our Masters of Data Science and Analytics, which is a 12-month program, you must either pay your full tuition amount or demonstrate that you have your full tuition amount on arrival. Proof of financials to support yourself and any of your accompanying family members is also going to be asked for most often, and this is going to be your settlement funds requirements. So for example, if you are a single applicant, you're going to have to show that you have 22,895 Canadian dollars. If you have family of 4, you're going to have to show the minimum settlement funds based on your household size. So referencing how much that money is going to be and making sure you're able to demonstrate that you have those funds on arrival. This is going to be your bank statements and they should be updated. So for example, if you applied for your study permit back in February or March of 2026 and you're arriving in August of 2026, you should be bringing with you updated bank accounts. The officer will not accept the bank accounts from February of 2026 because they are stale, they are old. So making sure you're updating those documents. The exception is with your guaranteed investment certificate, the GIC. Folks who have obtained the GIC, your documentation still remains valid. So you can continue to bring that with you. It's important to know that if you're arriving late, so if you're arriving in September before the drop deadline, there may be an increase from the Department of Immigration, Refugees, and Citizenship Canada in your settlement funds requirement. Every fall, typically in September, the Department of IRCC will update settlement funds. It is expected to increase in the fall of 2026. So it's important that if you are arriving late, specifically before the drop deadline, that you are ensuring that you have sufficient funds to meet the new requirements. When it comes to entry again, when you arrive, you're going to need to have a valid temporary resident visa or electronic travel authorization, whichever is applicable based off of your citizenship. The exception is our friends, the American citizens and U.S. green card holders. You need not have either the TRV or the ETA. Now, when it comes to valid immigration medicals, folks who needed to have one prior to arrival, your medical must be valid at the time of arrival. It is not okay for your medical to expire prior to arriving in Canada. You will be refused. So ensure that you're updating your medical. If you need to update your medical because it's expiring prior to arrival, ensure that you give it at least 10 calendar days before you arrive in Canada. And that's because your panel physician must submit your updated medical results to the IRCC. And officers are not going to be able to access that if you travel too soon after having taken your medical exam. We strongly encourage you to attend our How to Prepare for Your Arrival session on July 8th. We're going to go in depth into these documents, so please do register and attend that session. If you have a change of plan, so for example, your study permit is refused, you decide you no longer want to come to Canada because you're going to miss your family, or perhaps you've been admitted somewhere else and you want to go somewhere else, and that's okay. But you need to connect and communicate those change of plans with the University of Calgary. So if you are in a faculty that will register your courses, such as engineering or nursing, ensure that you tell your coordinator to remove you from those courses by the drop deadline, which is September 10th. Otherwise, you're going to be on the hook for courses that you're not going to be taking. So financially for those courses. So making sure you're connecting with your coordinators. If you have a study permit refusal or delay in application processing, You can seek a deferral. Generally speaking, deferrals are not supported until about mid-August. Graduate students, you may have a little bit more flexibility as to when you can request your deferral. But that being said, it's typically not supported until mid-August, and that's because we want you to wait if you are facing a delay until about mid-August to try to see if we can get you if you can get your decision, and if you have a refusal, trying to get you to reapply if possible. Okay, failing to drop your courses by the drop deadline can result in you owing fees even if you are no longer coming to Canada. So making sure that you're dropping your courses in time. The latest date students should arrive is that drop deadline, which is September 10th. Now, keeping in mind that some programs such as SAPL, so architecture, some programs like nursing, and programs like law, they require you to be in Canada on the first day of the term. So September 10 may not be a date that you can drop by. You may have to drop your courses by the start of the term if you're not able to join. It's going to be important that you're connecting with your program, especially if you're in law, architecture, or nursing, or social work, because they do have strict guidelines as to when you must be in Canada and ready to start your program. All right, my last slide here is International Student Services. This is our contact information, again, our office hours and our Instagram. Please follow it. Thank you so much for your time. I know I went a little bit over time today, but we really appreciate you staying with us. There's the QR code for your feedback. I am going to stop my sharing my screen, and we will stop the recording because we don't record